It's there.
Welcome to Meat Pies and Shots 5. I'm John Compton.
I'm Dan Tomlinson.
And here we are, talking our own brand of rubbish again.
Apologies for last week, Johnny.
Yeah, well, we were going to do it. I sort of had this thing called work, but then a bit of a sad story because I've actually missed my first game of the season this week. I didn't make it to Catalans despite paying for my flights.
Part-time support.
Despite paying for my hotel, despite arranging everything. Like a numpty, lost my passport. Tried to get a new one, and apparently I didn't qualify for an upgrade in order to get a same day one.
So basically you did a Liam Watts in 2015 when he couldn't find his passport and he missed all FC's game there.
I'm just dodgy, aren't I, obviously, clearly. I spoke to the passport office every day last week trying to sort it out, because I even found a flight on the Saturday that if I could get it in time, I could fly from Stansted at 20 to 7 on Saturday morning and still make the game. But passport office just turned around and said my security checks won't be back in time and I won't be able to go. I was like, yeah, cheers for that, thanks, really appreciate it.
Meanwhile, I got back from Spain today. I've had a great week.
Yeah, lovely, nice for summer.
And nice weather. Yeah, all-inclusive hotel.
The people I was going with, I actually still took them to the airport and then picked them up as well. So not only did I not get to go, I got to wave off all my mates to clear off and go watch it, and then go and pick them up after that. Then sat at home and watched the game. Wow, I think that's where we're going to start as well, isn't it?
I think it'd be real not to after give you something nice to talk about.
LFCV Catalans. Well, so you was there. What were your thoughts there? I mean, I've watched the game 3 times at home. Well, 3.5 times now. And
Alright, let's start with people that slag off Mark Sneed, shall we? You're a set of numpties, so let's leave it there. Mark Sneed wins Hull FC. He wins games for Hull FC time and time and time again. He's left boot, he's mercurial, he steps up when all needed most, he's a man for the big occasion. Yeah, you've still got idiots like Gary Schofield and other idiots in the media. Imagine if that was Danny Richardson. Imagine if that was Stefan Ratford, who performed on 4 kicks. We're not just talking about a drop goal. We're talking about a 50-metre penalty goal. We're talking about the restart originally to get that 50-metre penalty goal. We're then talking about another restart to get the ball to bounce to go into touch. And then we're talking about a drop goal. Yes, there's some fortune in there. There's obviously some, lunacy from Braden Williami, which was ironic because he should have been on the pitch. So it's kind of sweet karma for Hull FC fans that he was the one that gave away the penalty to level the game. But no, I want to focus on Hull FC positives here. Mark Sneed was outstanding for me yet again. Brilliant.
Well, with that, what's interesting is the Salford game the week before, we had almost a dress rehearsal for the drop goal situation, didn't we? Where you can see... The impressive thing for me with it is not the drop goal itself, it's the build-up to it and the way when everybody's losing their heads and there's an awful lot going on, he keeps his cool and his calm, and he doesn't just take charge of that one play, he takes control of the entire set.
Yeah.
And he's telling which player, what tackle they're going to take it on, where they're going to run, what line they're going to run, and it's like a game of chess, and he's just manipulating his pieces into place. And once he drilled it into touch in Golden Point, at no point did I think he was going to miss. That's the testament of how good he is in that situation. And for me, Hull FC, and it's not just on the back of the Catalans game, but it needs to be a priority to get Mark Sneed signed up on a long-term deal. There's not another half in the league. And I'd go as far as saying he should be playing for England. And now I know he has limitations in his game. His running game isn't the strongest. Defensively, he really stepped up on Saturday, and he's been quite strong defensively all year as well. But his organisation, his ability to manage a game, his left boot, and his passing, his execution of his passing has really improved as well. He's taken his game onto another level, and he's only going to get better in the next couple of years.
It's funny you mention England, because I actually called that in 2017.
Great Britain.
Well, to go back to the World Cup age, right? In 2017, I called for him to be in that World Cup squad. And if he was in that World Cup squad, England would have won the tournament. Simple as that. They needed that little bit of direction that Luke Gale didn't provide.
England and Great Britain will play a forward-dominated game based off a hooker.
And you need a half-back to then play off the back of that.
Yeah, you need a half who's going to take charge of those last couple of tackles and put you in the right position and boss you forwards around. Sneed is absolutely the ideal man. He's almost tailor. I don't want him to play international rugby because I want him to be looked after and play for Hull FC.
Especially with that knee now, yeah. There's a little bit of a concern, that knee. Or does he milk it now and then?
Oh, a little bit. He's one of these, I think, who he likes to play the superhero, doesn't he? He's like, look at me, and he still gets through.
With the games that he's won Hull FC this year, I mean, I'd argue with the Salford game, even though Hull won it by 7 points, without Max Sneed did not win that.
He managed that out.
Wigan.
Yeah, absolutely. The Wigan game, he won that game. He won the Catalans game for us.
The Catalans game, that's 6 points we're talking about there. We're only 10 rounds in.
He was prominent in the other two games as well. Yeah.
Every game Hull FC win, he's prominent in. He's just such a majestic player for our club, manager on his club Hull FC, and we see him every week. We know what he's about, and he had a tough time with injury last year. I think he played about 16 games he managed last year, so it was about half the games. And
half of those he wasn't fit at all either, was he? No. What you've got to say is, and you look at it, and Hull FC have had a significant number of injuries at the start of the year. We've averaged 6 players from our first 17 out every single week. Last week, on Saturday against Catalans, there was 11 missing, which is a crazy stat.
12 against Salford the week before,
which has been similar to how it was at the back end of last year. The difference for me between last year and this year is that the halves have still prominently been fit and played, and so they've managed the games and got through. We've not blown anybody away, but we've found a way to win, and we've been able to create opportunities to score enough points to keep us in front and to keep us ticking along. 6 and 4. That's what we have. We won 6, lost 4. Given the injury situation we've had, I mean, you look at the Rovers game, it could have so easily been 7 and 3. It isn't. It is 6 and 4. We are where we are, but it's an incredible achievement, I think, to be where we are. Not enough plaudits have been put on the players that have turned up, and in particular, I think Mark Sneed. I think he's been absolutely key.
Well, that's exactly where I was coming from, Johnny. If these are there's I won't necessarily say favouritism, but there's definitely a bias and maybe more of a bit more likability to certain clubs, especially when we're talking about your Eddie Hemminses, even people in the media. Who
he admits that he's a St Helens fan, doesn't he? And it's like,
I'll say it again. If that was Danny Richardson, if that was Stephen Ratchford, George Williams, there'd be 30-page articles for it, in the League Express, League Weekly, which I must say. If you ever have problems sleeping, just read the League Express. I had to unsubscribe to it today. I've actually subscribed to it on my iPad. And I read through it, and I was in Girona Airport earlier. I had a little scan through it. What a load of rubbish it was. I read Pearson's comments, which is interesting itself, talking about, what he wants to do with recruitment as far as 2020 is concerned. And yeah, talk is cheap, I'll believe it when it's backed up with actions, but just the old paper was boring. They probably could say that for a future rant edition, actually. Media, I actually don't mind some of the media, but we've got some awful, awful media, and Martin Saddle's definitely one of them. He's the muppet that said LFC don't give opportunities to young players on Twitter. Well, didn't Connor Wynn and Jack Brown both score? Both 18 years old, both of the combined age, which is still lower than Gareth Ellis.
Was Jack Logan playing? Was Jordan Lane playing? Have we regularly played Massey Matongo this year? Is Jez Litton featured?
Well, I actually went through all the players that Radford's given debuts to, and I actually did it on the Queen Twitter page at Hull FC Fanzine on Twitter, and I actually said originally there was about 200 appearances there, but it's more like 300. Brad Fasher's played 50 times, for the club. Jansen Edge obviously he's gone to Salford now. He played 30. Your kebab-loving mate down in London played 50 games for us.
How did he play 50 games?
Matongo's, played 40-odd games now. Lane's approaching 30. Jez Litton's approaching 20. So you can't say that they don't give opportunities to young kids. Jack Logan's pushing 40 games now. So we give opportunities all the time. And that was just a really lazy, cheap-shotted statement there. And again, would he say that about Wigan or Warrington or St Helens? No, he wouldn't. And
he's lauding their youth setups. Now, granted, right,
we don't agree with our youth setup right now, but what we do agree with is we agree with our coaching hierarchy that I've always, since Radford's come into the head coach role, we haven't signed one loan player. When we've had these injury crises, we throw Cam Scott in. We throw Liam Harrison, played a dozen games last year for Hull. Could have quite easily signed, an half on loan like a Rovers do or a Castle or a Salford, go to the loan market. But we didn't. We backed our youth.
To be fair with Liam Harris, we did bring him in from Doncaster, didn't we? But we were paying his wages at Doncaster.
He was anyway. An LFC player starting on the name, wasn't
it? Yeah, exactly. I mean, you go back to the game though on Saturday, and the big thing there was an interesting comment in the commentary from after Sam Cassiano's try where Barry McDermott turned around and said, and I think more often than not he's reasonably fair, Barry McDermott, and I agree with a lot of what he says sometimes, but he said, I think that's the rugby league gods show it, give it the fact that they managed to score and squeak it in, go in front. It was like that's the rugby league gods at work because of the try that they had rolled out. Now, the thing you talk about rugby league gods, and for me the rugby league gods was the fact that Braden Williame was still on the pitch to catch the ball when it had not gone 10 with an absolute brain explosion. There's a player who should have been sent off.
I can't
in the
believe he
first
actually
half.
said that.
No, I did. He said
that is nuts.
And I sort of got where he was coming from. It was a really poor decision to rule out Matt with
It should
this
have been
try.
down to 12 men after 20 minutes.
There should have been.
And a couple of dodgy penalty calls that led to their tries as well.
Equally. And
Connor Wynn's try.
Connor Wynn's try was a legitimate try that wasn't given because there wasn't a suitable video angle to show that the Catalans player had knocked it. The fact that it went up as a no try meant it came back as a no try, but that was because of a poor video angle. It was a legitimate try. There's question marks over Brett Fremo's pass. Was Connor's ball forward?
I think we both said that, didn't we, earlier? It was definitely forward.
It's just a game of rugby. You get some calls and you don't get some calls, and you could go back in swings and roundabouts. Chris Kendall was awful, but he was equally awful for both teams, I'd say. There was no favouritism to any team. He didn't favour Catalans, he didn't favour Hull FC. It was just one of those games where his interpretation of the rules was a little bit finicky. Both teams pushed it to the absolute nth degree, and the result was we scrambled and we played. And I had a discussion with somebody yesterday, and I turned around and said that Catalans didn't play poorly, because they didn't. Catalans actually played pretty well in spells, really challenged us, really pushed us, but it was just a tremendous Hull FC performance, led magnificently by Gareth Ellis. Gareth Ellis was unreal for me, and we talk about Mark Sneed. And people like, and Jack Brown, I think, won the Our League Man of the Match, and that's a little bit of a fairy tale story. As a young kid coming through on debut, you get that there's a sentimental,
to vote for.
a sentimental value attached to it. But for me, Gareth Ellis was head and shoulders above anybody on that pitch. He was a pure leader. He just said to them young kids, "Come on, follow me." And I'll go in, and he just went in and he hit and smashed everybody he came up against, and he was tremendous. So it was Gareth Ellis from before he retired. It was as good a performance from him in a Hull FC shirt as I've ever seen, given the circumstances, and the emotion of it the emotion of that result will give Hull the confidence, I think, to really kick on. I also think the way that the game finished will be a bit of a shot in the arm to Catalans as well. I can really see them consolidating a little bit now and thinking, right, that's what we've got to do. We've got to play tough and a little bit. It'll go two ways, but I can see them coming together. There's some
they've got to change the way they play, because they were disgraceful on Saturday. We'll come on to this in the rant, definitely, but they played for penalties all game. They tried to play some nice rugby at times, but predominantly their game plan was to corner penalties out of the referee, and that's where you can get on top of a weak official, and Chris Kendall's that. It's actually hard to believe that he's a worse player than he is official. Because he came through the ranks at Huddersfield, didn't quite make it. So there's actually a worse player in there as well, which is pretty frightening to be honest. Because pretty poor. But yeah, I think Hull all around, that's a huge 12 points there. There's no beating around the bush there. It puts Hull right up there, and they are genuine playoff contenders. You've said all along Hull will be top four.
I do, and I really think we will. I think we'll finish fourth.
I must admit, I said fifth, but when the derbies this week, and it could be a situation where Hull pretty much go full tilt, and if Hull can keep that, pretty much going with their desired 1 to 17 every week, then there's no reason why they can't be certainly a playoff club and even go higher than fifth.
Because of these injuries, we've given game time to some other players. I think the likes of Massi Matonga and Jordan Lane have now established themselves. And at the start of the year,
Sanchez Lutton in there too.
Yeah, but if you're talking about your frontline 17 now, you'd have Massi Matonga probably above Chris Green. You'd have him
on current form. Yeah. Bear in mind that Chris Green had played in 6 months. And
definitely. We're going to have everybody available on Friday. For me, Chris Green and Josh Bowden don't come straight back in. They'll play probably on Monday. And again, there's a question mark: do you bring Andre Savelio back in as well? I probably wouldn't. I'd say our frontline 4 at the moment is, bearing in mind Ellis is available, is Taylor, Payer, Ellis, and Massey. And that's a decent foursome with the likes of Savelio, Green, Bowden. All of a sudden, our stock in the middle of the ruck is looking really good. Westerman at 13 can come back. Yeah, you've got Dean Adley, who had an excellent game as well.
Jake Connor to come back as well. Some class moments from Jake.
There's an interesting one though, right? And bringing on to this next point quite well is the one area where I thought Catalans got at us early doors, and I discussed this with you off air, is on our right edge slightly, because all year we've played with Albert Kelly on the playing outside of Sekamano on our right edge. Now Albert Kelly naturally defends right on Sekamano's shoulder and pushes out and slides out. Jake Connor defended pretty much on Carlos Tumavavi's shoulder when he played on that right edge and then pushed in. And that resulted in a bigger space than normal. And when you're talking fractions here, but there was enough for Catalan to sort of exploit that one a couple of times, and go through. It cost us for the first try, and there's a couple of other times where the sort of half brokers, and I think it was all based on our spacing being slightly off on our right edge. I don't think it was any coincidence that once we brought Kelly on and Connor moved over to that left centre and played over, which was interesting because he's never played there for LFC before. He's always been a right centre.
Obviously, he's played left centre for England.
For England,
so
yeah. It's not an alien. He can play anywhere, can't he?
Yeah, he's a freak, isn't he? Naturally gifted player.
So he went out there. Josh Griffin moved into the second row and then put 60 minutes in the second row. Josh Griffin, incidentally, was now third in the Super League try scoring stakes.
9 tries in 4 away games.
Meters for fun, worked so hard, and it was on it not so long back. All FC fans were absolutely slagging him off, but he's become a really key cog in our team.
I'd love to retract those Facebook comments that got me banned from the whole FC fans forum on Facebook.
There's an interesting one though, but I think you talk about Hull FC and what we're going to go with full tilt. I think Radford came up with an absolute masterstroke by bringing Kelly off the bench with 20 minutes on Saturday, and it's not something I foresaw or thought we would do, and it just worked really well. And again, I discussed this with a couple of my friends, and my take on it is this, and I think the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah, absolutely, that's a brilliant decision to make. One, Albert sort of struggled a little bit fitness-wise this year, and in the back end of games, he's been really blowing himself out because he's so honest. While he's on that pitch, he just runs and runs and runs and
Plus, he has been playing tough recently, hasn't he? I think he has been carrying an injury.
And you can see that. But then, Albert Kelly's main threat for Hull FC is carrying the ball and running at retreating defenders and causing problems. And he's a running threat, that's what he is. You're going to get much more of a running threat after the 20-metre mark when people 20-minute mark when people are starting to fatigue and fall off tackles a little bit, and the second wind is not quite there. In the first 20 minutes, there's an argument that you completely nullify one of your biggest threats, and you're just tiring him out, and just running into the ground for no reason. You get 20 minutes into it, you bring him in fresh, and immediately he's going to worry that team. It's a really good position for us to be in, to have Connor, Sneed and Kelly all available. And I think Hull FC could really be a bit of a surprise package in the second half of this season and really kick in. Do I think we're as good as St Helens and Warrington at the best? No, I don't. But I think we're better than anybody else in the league at our best. I really do. There's an argument that certainly with Warrington, St Helens showed the blueprint, and we'll come on to that game later on, but St Helens showed a bit of a blueprint of how to deal with them, to be fair. So, all in all, I'd say brilliant result. Best result of the season for FC.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings us on to Wakefield Wigan then, a 30 points to 20 win for Wakefield there, but it's come at a cost, hasn't it? Some of the players that have got injured from that game and some of Wigan's tactics, the
questionable.
Well, They brought all the wrestling, didn't it? It was Michael Maguire in 2010.
But there's a way of wrestling, and then there's a way of
the Wigan way.
Of going over the top, and these cannonball attacking the knee. That's an illegal tackle. No.
I just have a little point on Wigan, right? Their little crisis thing. They had the rectum of Wigan last year. They've had drink driving, haven't they? They've had alleged. Well, I don't know if it's performance or recreational right now.
Recreational, I believe. With
I was going to have a rant about Gabe Emlyn actually in Meat Pies 4, but I wanted to save it until it actually comes out. Because if it is, if it don't matter if it's either, I'm still going to have a rant. Well, I just want to wait till it's in black and white. But they've had a nightmare recently off the field, Wigan, haven't they? And now, you think the thing with Sean Edwards that's come out, he's confirmed that he's not going to be the coach for 2020.
Lenigan's had their pants down, those fans. 100%. Ian Lenigan.
He needs to be accountable for that. Is his arrogance getting so much? Because he is a very arrogant bloke. Do you know what the thing is, though? When Robert Elstone came in and obviously, revolutionised Super League, Wigan are supposed to be one of the, the big front runners for this. And they can't even get their own house in order.
Robert Elstone, who was sat next to Bernard Gouache on Saturday and chatting to him all the way through the game. Left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Anyway, with Wigan, there's an interesting one. There's a fella called, I think he's called Phil Wilkinson, who's the...
Wigan Observer.
Wigan Observer guy. I read an interesting article from him about the Gabe Hamlin situation, actually. And he says he's not offered a comment yet, until he know, because he doesn't know the full facts around it.
Well, that's smart, isn't it?
Yeah, but what the interesting point that came out of that I was completely unaware of was he turned around and said that cocaine as a drug, which is what we believe is tested positive for, is not illegal all year round in the rugby league as part of the UCAD rules. Apparently, it's only illegal for a certain period within the year. Now, I don't know what that period is and when it is, and it's something I'm going to do a bit
playing
digging.
versus when you're not playing.
Yeah, effectively, you could. They're basically saying that you're allowed to take, or
so basically, it's a criminal offence.
Yeah, but
if you get caught by the authorities,
but it's not a UCAD offence.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's not an anti-drugs offence. You
it's
wouldn't
not
get
a performance enhancing drug necessarily, but obviously it does affect.
At certain points in the year.
Experience here, of
now,
course.
the guy from the Wigan Observer, Phil Wilkinson, he said the reason he didn't want to particularly offer an opinion was because he's interviewed Zach Hardacre following his ban. He ghost wrote Terry Newton's autobiography. He interviewed Gareth Hock through his, and he's seen it from both sides of the situation. And he knows that there's often other things at play,
contributing factors, yeah,
and going on, and usually it does involve mental health with this stuff, and I sort of get that.
That can't get thrown on too easily though for me now. It's like you get caught with drugs, I'll just throw the mental health card out. I don't want to be brutal because it is obviously a thing within our game, mental health. I think it's an area we don't get right, but I also think it's a cheap shot just to throw that card out sometimes.
It's one of these things, isn't it, where you've almost got to accept that there will be somebody who's low enough to take advantage of it.
Some people are just dickheads. That's the way of the world. You've got people that we like, you've got people that you don't like. Obviously, people listen to this and thinking, yeah, these are all people we don't like. But, we don't take drugs, though. I'll put my hand up where I don't take drugs, and I'm pretty sure I've already done it anyway.
Get tested at work.
5 kids as well, I hope not.
That's what I do, stay at home every night.
But, for me, there should be a no dickhead policy in rugby league. If you'll get caught with drugs for me, you're banned for life.
Performance enhancing, yeah.
Performance enhancing drug. What?
Recreational drugs, right? And I sort of see it slightly differently, and I think the NRL again have it right in that you look at Ben Barber. The first time he was caught with cocaine, he didn't get a ban.
Yeah,
and
persistent offending. Yeah, that's when it gets.
I do think you fair strike. If you get caught taking cocaine, it's not a performance enhancing drug. No matter what anybody says, it really isn't. If anything, it's probably going to be detrimental to your immediate performance.
For Thomas Binns, was it?
You should be sending them to rehab. There should be an education level. There should be the league should be accountable, or the club should be accountable. They should look to work with them. It should be made public where possible, certainly afterwards. And there should be a formal education program that they go through. It's no different to me. It's a little bit. If it's a non-performance enhancing drug, it's not really different to alcohol, apart from the fact that it's illegal. Again, I wouldn't want my players going out and getting smashed every night as well. And doing that and drinking alcohol to excess with it. That has just as much of a detrimental effect.
You have an image, don't you, as a professional player when you're representing your club. If you're a George Williams at Wigan, you're representing Wigan Rugby League Club. You don't go out in Wigan on a Friday and Saturday night and act like a dickhead. It's as simple as that. I actually saw a tweet from a guy called Alex, a Wigan fan, on Twitter, and he said something along the lines of these players are too arrogant. These young players, they get given a shot, they play a few games, and they think the smoke gets blown out their ass, and they think the God's gift to creation, to mankind. And there's definitely an arrogance, I think, in this lad culture, in younger players. And
you've sort of got to have a level of arrogance, though, to perform at that top level of sport. You've got to have that belief.
Off-field arrogance where you think you can get away with these things. Oh, yeah, I can snort some stuff up my nose. That won't matter. Oh, I can have a few pints and I'll drive home. It don't matter, but it doesn't matter,
It's the Superman complex stuff, isn't it? And it's a thin line. It's whether they're mature enough. And not everybody is mature at that age. Are they mature enough to deal with it? Is there enough support?
Is it the fact we're a working class sport as well?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
I think socially, I think we're kidding ourselves, don't we, that we think recreational drugs are in working class culture. Of course, yeah.
It's more prominent than anything. It's just these guys. And then it becomes more and more prominent week on week. And you can walk into any pub on a Saturday night in the city centre and there'll be somebody taking something. That's the reality of it. And that's where I'm saying 100% somebody takes steroids. Minimum 2-year ban fair. Second time, if you get caught second time, then you're done. You're gone. Recreational drugs, it could be argued either way for me. I do sort of think there needs to be a level of rehab and a level of education afforded to these kids to give them another shot. And then if they then continue, then that's when you bring the ban in situation is. I don't have all the answers. I don't profess to have all the answers. I just think the current system we've got is flawed and isn't working. A 2-year ban for a recreational drug immediately. But this is the other thing, right? You look at it, certain players have had 2-year bans straight up, haven't they? Do you know when they failed the test? Other players, and I'll use Ben Barber again, didn't even get banned the first time from the NRL. You know, then got done a second time and got a 12-week ban. Yeah. So,
well, Zach Hardaker got 1 year, didn't he?
Hardaker got a year. Where's the fairness? Who decides what's what? And I know they'll say there's mitigating circumstances and they had family members who died and things like that and stuff had gone on. They've all got things. I tell you what, right? I have more of an issue with somebody playing. If you talk about an image of a game and things like that, I have more of an issue with somebody who's been convicted of a crime than turning out and playing for it.
So like a Matt Lodge?
Absolutely. Matt Lodge should not be anywhere near the NRL. He's an absolute grub. And you can use the analogy with somebody like Ben Kane. Do you know who played for Rovers and came
well,
back
killed
through that?
Doesn't it? You kick someone in the head, you're running the risk of
and it was just
GBH minimum, that
it was just he was just allowed to come back to the game. Again, you've got the situation with now I know Adam Walker. Adam Walker's a slightly different situation.
Snapchat stalker.
Yeah, but there was stuff there. There was things going on, and he was still playing during that period while that was being investigated. That was just wrong. There should be, if you're suspected of something, there should be an automatic stand down period. And again, it's
like
an area.
Tyrone May at the Panthers.
May, Jack de Belin.
Jack de Belin's great
St
example.
George. Yeah. You know, these guys haven't been found guilty of anything yet, but it's the old adage of.
Then is it innocent until proven guilty?
Yes, but then the club, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be paid, right? You have an issue there where the clubs have a duty to protect those guys as well, but to continue to run the risk of look at Adam Johnson in football, spent all that time still playing for Sunderland. And his club told his club he was pleading not guilty. He was not guilty, and then on the morning of his trial, pleaded guilty.
Yeah, that's
you have that situation, and so as commercial entities and big businesses, clubs have to look at their presence in the community, and their reputation, and the damage that could do. Recreational drugs is not. It's not the be all and end all. And it's not the biggest problem for me. It's more a cultural thing. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, what sort of sport are we, and do we offer enough education to these kids? But you're always going to get idiots, aren't you?
That's the thing, yeah. There's a fine line between someone who's got a mental health problem and or to someone who's just a general dickhead. Zach Hardaker falls into the latter category.
But he might mature. But we go back to the Wigan Wakefield game, and again it's synonymous of their culture is these cannonball tackles. Sam Powell. That cannonball tackle he's got 2 games for was awful. Wakefield have come out of this, right? You've got Jacob Miller with an MCL injury who's going to miss 6 weeks. You've got Anthony England who's going to have an operation on a knee. Mm-hmm. You've got Reece Lynn and Carl Wood who also went off with injuries during that game because of cannonball tackles. Fortunately, theirs aren't quite so serious and they may even play this week, but they may not. You know, it's not coincidental. Maybe one in a game could be deemed to be accidental. But four. Yeah. And they've walked out of it with Joe Shorrocks has got a 0 match ban, and you've got Sam Powell with a 2 match ban.
Yeah,
you know that's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
The Salford game all got 4 different players who were tripping, didn't they? So,
looking back when I look at what went on, I actually thought the bans that we picked up in that game and
I had no problem with Mickey Pay one.
And all the Andre Savelio one, it was blatant.
Well, Savelio, ironically, probably wouldn't have played anyway. But yeah, going back to Wigan, they play on the edge, don't they? They play really tough, they play really physical, and they test the walls of the game to the extreme. They've done that ever since, like I say, Michael Maguire came in. I think also, despite the injuries, you've got to give a lot of credit to Wakefield, I know Wigan came back, but at one point, Wakefield blew Wigan away. Obviously, it took a bit of resolution.
You've got David Fafita who's played 80 minutes in
that trial was outstanding as well.
And brilliant. Wakefield, you've got to, as you said, you've got to tip your hats a little bit. That win came without Bill Tupou, without Tom Johnston. Yep. Their danger on the left edge, their main strike, and they found a way to win. They battered Wigan up the middle, really, and their big boys came at them. Danny Brough has been a really astute signing for them.
Just controls around the field, doesn't he? Yeah.
Does a really good job, and then on the back of that, likes Paulie, who will miss a game. I think Paulie picked up a ban.
That's
as well.
Right. Yeah, one game back.
Yeah, and David Fafita and Craig Kopchak, people like that, going really well for them.
Fafita's absolutely quality, isn't he? And obviously the last show did mention something I said. Captain League legend at Hull FC said about David and his brother, but I think in the main stage Super League, David Feet has been a great addition to the competition. As of Wakefield, their resurgence under Chris Chester is remarkable. It's just amazing that one particular Super League club decided to get rid of him, innit? And now he's blowing trees up there. What he's done in West Yorkshire, with an owner, Michael Carter, who obviously shared meat pies and shots, so he's automatically got our approval. But yeah, he's a likeable fella.
Did he really?
Yeah, he gave a little retweet. Yeah, he gave us a retweet on Twitter.
Cheers,
yeah, big fans of Wakefield. I don't believe in second team nonsense, but I like Wakey.
Keep sharing this. I might have a second team. Cheers.
And I do apologise for tipping you to finish 9th. I really am sorry.
I didn't.
I clearly know nothing.
That's why I'm top of the tipping league.
Yeah, true. And I'm down in 5th or 6th. Yeah, moving on.
Huddersfield Cass. Now, this is a funny one because I spent the whole game cheering for Cass because I thought I'd tipped them in the tipping league. It turns out I hadn't. I tipped Huddersfield. And the fact that Huddersfield won meant that I the aforementioned Up the Cream tipping league I am now top of. Not that I'm gloating, but there you go.
Do you know what? I'll have a ding next week. And if he's still top after Easter Monday, obviously there's 2 sets of fixtures next weekend, Easter weekend. I'll have a ding, like a beep, like a ding ding every time he says it. And I bet we'll get up to double figures if he's still top.
Number 1. Right. Huddersfield, though, have turned a bit of a corner, haven't they? And this is a team. This is the team who you predicted would finish bottom.
I did.
And would.
I really do know nothing.
I've always thought with them, they had a run in them, similar to last year, and they play some decent rugby. They go edge to edge. My concern with them is that they've got too many lightweight forwards, all these ex-backs that are playing in the forwards. It works on some days, but I think when it gets down to it and it's really tough and it's really difficult.
Aaron Murphy's an example, isn't he? Yeah.
He's a good player, and he's full of vigour and full of absolute exuberance and really works hard for you, but they can get beat up. They can get smashed up. Apart from Akumatai and Sebika Hefo, they're a smallish pack. I mean, Joe Waddle is a good player, and I've said this a couple of times, but I still think his best rugby is in the centre for me. So
yeah, I think that's a fair analogy.
Interesting. But I think Huddersfield, and I'm still not sold on Matt Frawley. They're winning in spite of Matt Frawley for me. I think Lee Gaskell has really stepped up, and Cruz Leeman has been dynamite for him.
He's a great player, Cruz Leeman. I agree with Matt Frawley. I think he's got a lot to prove. But Castro is surprising. They lost at Leeds. Then they had that comeback
without McShane. It shows how key, right? And you've got to give Cass some credit as well, because they're playing without Luke Gale, who's their main playmaker. They're bringing Jordan Rankin to replace him. Jordan Rankin's now injured and not playing. I don't think he's too far away though, Rankin. No. So they're playing with halves of Truman and Matautia. One's a fullback, one's a young kid who's going to be a good
He's done alright though, Matautia. He's done the best he can in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Matautia as a player. I think he's a good player.
Wigan in that comeback win. He was brilliant.
They've just signed Chase Blair as well to fill that hole in the right centre that they had, because they did have a hole there in the right centre.
They played Minikin there a few times.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to play Toya Godo there. Now, I know he scored the winning try, but God, he
was awful.
He was gash.
He got rings around him,
Gildart made a mess of him last week.
I remember when we played him, he made his debut against Hull, actually.
He scored a hat-trick against
He scored a hat-trick. He scored 3 walking, Jenny, and I think he played on the right edge, and it was the left edge of Carlos Sumavavi for Tulu Talanoa. And they absolutely, made a mockery of him. And
He's an interesting. I mean, you can see he's got some skill and some ability going forward, but defensively his decisions was awful. I think Cass have had problems on that right edge most of the year, haven't they?
Yeah. Did he play Halifax Reserves actually the week before? Sorry to cut in there.
Did he really?
Yeah, I went to watch Hull Reserves a couple of Thursdays ago.
That's why you go there, played for Halifax.
Well, there was about 4 Cass lads that played for Halifax, yeah.
Crazy situation. Maybe they should just have their own reserve team. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But you go back to the Huddersfield Cass game. I thought Huddersfield just managed that game, and Cass were the better team, but couldn't find it. And that brain explosion from Adam Milner, and it's pretty typical of him for me. I think he's got that in him where he'll lose his head and come up with the wrong play at the wrong time.
I don't rate him.
No,
I don't
understand why he's in that elite performance. Well, I know why he is. Is because he had a good end to last year and he got picked on. He got blown up by lots of people as being the next, I don't know, whatever.
West Yorkshire Mafia journalist. Yeah. I'm definitely going to have a media rant one day.
But you put Paul McShane back in that team and they win that game, probably Castleford. And I think the sooner they can get... I think, is he back this week, McShane, or has he got another game on Thursday?
It's another game, isn't it? Yeah.
Got another game, so he misses Thursday. be an interesting one. They got what they deserved a little bit. It was, and I did think Truman was a bit quieter this week. He was better the week before, but you can't ask a young kid like that to be your best player every single week and lead you around as an half. He's still learning his trade, so they're still probably just about the third best team in the league. But
until we'll get their players back,
the Castleford they could go on a bit of a losing run. They could lose some. I actually think they'll probably win on Thursday because of the people like Wakefield have got
missing. Yeah, good show.
But they're not as strong as they were at the start of the year. Millington went off as well, and that impacted him. Liam Watts was tremendous again, as he has been all year for them.
He's just been for the past 4 years, but hey,
carrying their pack. Matt Cook as well, very good,
underrated.
Yeah, very good. So they've got some good players, Cass, but they do need McShane back. And I think McShane comes back into that team, they get much better.
Yeah, definitely. The big one then, Saints v Wire. I must admit, one thing that's really started to wind me up recently, Warrington's social media promotion this year has been absolutely outstanding. They're doing things different. They did Game of Thrones theme, like The Wire are coming, winter is coming, obviously it's the Game of Thrones one.
They've got professional people thinking about what they're doing.
Exactly.
That's all.
And yes, it's only 12 miles or whatever it is from Warrington to St Helens, but they sold the away end out. They haven't done that every time they've been there, so clearly they do something right. Why are we looking for reasons to be negative? Why aren't we looking for reasons to be positive? We should be commending Warrington right now. We should be saying, right, governing body, RFL, this is how you do it. Super League clubs, this is Warrington's, barometer to promoting games now. Let's do that. I know, I'll just use my club for example, just because I've obviously had a look at their social media today. Hull FC are all about getting quotes from Derby players, and the Derby is overkill for me. Personally, I dread these games, and I'd be quite happy if Hull Kingston Rovers went into oblivion, but you've got to play them, haven't we? And we do promote them right. We've already been told that the lower bowl of the stadium sold out for Good Friday. The only tickets you can buy are in the West Upper, so hopefully we'll be, topping 20k. And I just think we need to be, going back to my point, we need to be applauding what Warrington are doing right now, not finding negatives and laughing at them because they got stuffed. Yeah, they got stuffed, but the promotion off the field was great, and you've got to applaud them for that. And other clubs need to take note.
They've got an owner in Simon Moran who leads that club properly from the top, invests his money, brings in professional people to do professional jobs. And again, you use the analogy at Hull FC. I look at our media team and it's embarrassing. We've got a load of young kids on work experience effectively who get paid peanuts.
Well, I noticed none of them were there in Catalan, so clearly they don't get paid or they're not prepared to pay the expenses from to go. The only one that was there was I think it's I don't know his official role, but it's a bloke called Tom Gooch.
It is a shocking situation at the moment with us, and I look at media and PR, and it's an area that I work in. I know a little bit about it. I'm granted I work for a civil engineering company, so it's slightly different. However,
principle though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You do things the right way from that perspective, and primarily my role is about protecting reputation and that sort of thing, and limiting reputational damage. However, there is an element of promotion in it as well, and if you promote correctly, you can create far more money and far you're just looking at it from a commercial perspective, much more income for a club through positive promotion and positive media relations than a salary would ever cost to anybody. And I'm somebody who I'm fortunate enough to make a decent living out of that industry. These kids are not making a decent living out of that industry. We are paying peanuts, and we are getting monkeys because of it. It's ridiculous. Clubs are being so short-sighted. You've only got to look at somebody like Jackson Hastings, Anthony Gelling, how they promote themselves. Yeah. Within the media.
Well, he's actually a Wigan fan called Sam, and he's actually really good at his job.
Yeah, and he's latched onto somebody like that. But there are personalities within the Hull club and within our team who would be brilliant in that scenario. You've got somebody like Jake Connor, Mark Sneed, Josh Griffin is very vocal on social media. You've got people who you could use and you could tap into, and we do so much in the community. We do so much from a charity perspective, but we don't make any noise about it. It absolutely grates on me. A little bit of a rant, but
I'll tell you what.
Let's go back to Warrington.
I'll just stick the boat in one little time here, actually. Obviously, one of my best mates is an amputee, therefore I play World Championship League with him. I've done since 2014 now. Originally it was under the Hull FC brand.
They won 100-0 without Dan this week.
Yeah, but I got
Genuinely.
Yeah, they did 190 when I played the other week. But right, the rant I want to make is it was under the Hull FC brand and we got nothing. We got not even a tweet. Adam Pearson didn't even know it existed. He's the owner of the club. Can you imagine Simon Rand not knowing what's going on at Warrington? Even Manchester St Helens. It's unheard of. It wouldn't happen.
The club should be linked to it. Should be
Exactly.
promoting it. Should
be like the female one now. It's a joke. That really did wind us up how they get everything and we got nothing. So we decided to pull away from the FC suffix and now we're just Hull. Our badges, the council colours, not Leeds Rhinos colours. I'll put that out there. It's a different shade of blue, a different shade of amber.
They've got red on the sleeves. That's the only thing that bothers me.
Yeah, it does bother me that as well. But the point of making it, there was a story, basically a really good story. It's a BBC DIY SOS programme, and it was about a family that obviously been through some tough times, and they came to a wheelchair session and got involved. Well, actually, couldn't wait to take the credit for that. I was like, you didn't have anything to do with it. This is all the wheelchair team, and it actually did really wound me up because, like I said, they've given us no exposure, nothing whatsoever. And as soon as a feel-good factor comes out and a couple of massive wins, they're all over us. It really does wound me up.
But Saints and Wire are doing a really good job on the back. They're showing the blueprint of how clubs should deal with some of that. And no matter the fact they got stuffed, and it was a bit of a reality check for me. It shows where Blake Austin really is, shows where Warrington's pack really are, and Saints gave the blueprint of you tackle them up front, you dominate them. And essentially that game was won by Alex Walmsley and Luke Thompson nullifying Chris Hill and Mike Cooper. When Saints came to Hull, they battered us up the middle first. They didn't just go to the edges, they went through our middle.
When Wire came to Hull,
Yeah, sorry, when Wire came to Hull. And that's where the battered us, and it was Chris Hill and it was Mike Cooper and Joe Philbin laying a platform going through us. They came up against St Helens and they got absolutely blasted. Morgan Knowles was superb for St Helens, I thought. Really, really good. And that on the back of that, Warrington were then looking for their halfbacks to do something about it, to drag them about and to come up with some good plays and to do well for them. And Blake Austin, that's not his game. He's a bit of a flat track bully. He's a good, very good player, excellent player. When his team's going forward and when they're dominating, he will be a superb standoff half. He's the cream. He's the cream on top of whatever pudding they've got. That's what he is. But when you're looking for an half to really dig in and get you about and to do what Mark Sneed did for LFC at Catalans, Blake Austin isn't going to do that. And that was the reality check for me. You got to look at it as well. St Helens, they just played simple. They played solid. Lomax was very good again. Even Richardson came in, played. I know he came up with a couple of errors as well, and I know you don't like him, but he did well. He played his part. Peru and Tyre were awesome. I mean, the
Richardson is garbage on it. It's absolutely atrocious. I would rather have you at 36 in the house. You are a hooker at the end of the day.
I'm more edging towards a prop, I reckon, nowadays.
He is atrocious. It's no coincidence lost at Catalans as soon as he came back in.
Well, they've come in and they've done well, and St Helens comfortably won that game. That try from Regan Grace was superb as well. And Regan Grace is a player who I've bagged a bit and said he's got massive holes in his game.
He's got raw pace though. That's the thing. You're not wrong in that though. He has got massive holes in his game, but when you've got pace, you're halfway there, right? Yeah. There's no substitute for pace.
He absolutely just stood him up with some footwork.
Pace is devastating.
And nailed it. And Toby King looked very foolish up against him just for that one try. But what a shithousery bit of play from Tom Larnham as well to come in there. That was one of the worst ones I've seen this. Yeah. Now, I'm all for bring back the biff and get the shoulder charge in and play nice and tough. When a winger's just scored a try and you're blindsiding him with a swinging arm over the top like a coward, then that's not the time. So
that was two instances.
It wasn't tough.
Red card.
Yeah,
should have gone.
Absolutely.
Get him walking. Liam Watts was fuming this weekend watching both of those games.
Referees have been pretty lenient in the last few weeks, haven't they? And you go back a little bit to LFC as well, and Lee Radford's comments on the back of it. And we're gonna talk a bit more about the play of the ball and referees and stuff, but it just highlights that nothing's going to change until there is a coaches meeting. So these interpretations of these rules and the relaxations of it. Where I would be annoyed is, say we get to the derby on Friday and it's bound to be a little bit tasty and somebody puts a bit of a challenge and they dish a red card out early doors, I'd be really, really wound up with that because there's no consistency.
They did that last year, Brett Freeman.
Yeah, because there'd be no consistency. So until they have this meeting and they're able to brief teams accordingly about the rule changes, then we know what we're going to get. All we ask for is a bit of consistency there. I just thought St Helens were very good. Wire, it was a bit of a reality check, and I think
massively.
that's where you get in big games with them. They've got the potential to blow somebody away, absolutely. But I think if it's nip and tuck, I don't see them coming out the right side of it.
Right, the rants then, and this will tie in with the Challenge Cup games that played this weekend. Absolutely love the Challenge Cup. It's the most prestigious competition in rugby league in the UK. It should be cherished. Obviously, me and Johnny Hull FC fans, we've seen our club go back to back at Wembley in 2016, 2017. That's the best, best ever days I've had, watching rugby league as a Hull FC fan. And now you've got the 8 top Super League clubs coming in the 6th round. You only have to play 4 games. I do not agree with it. It's wrong. You've got fantasy stories. Thatcher Heath Crusaders getting to the 5th round, which is remarkable. And obviously they got beat by Dewsbury this weekend. They're out now.
They give them a game though, didn't
they?
Exactly.
I think just 4 half time it was 10-all on it or something like that. So they played, really well. Lee going to Rovers, leading the game with a few minutes to go, and Rovers had to get 2 late tries to win. Halifax beating London. Yeah, I know. Halifax are obviously a good team, but London at the end of the day are a Super League club. Workington, Rochdale, I know they got stuffed at Leeds and Salford respectively, but it's a big doubt for them, isn't it? Workington going to Headingley, 2-0 stands, massive club. Again, Rochdale, Salford. You're taking that away, and plus for us, as all fans, or a Leeds fan, Warrington, Wigan, especially Leeds, because you always seem to get the lower clubs, but you want to go to these sides, don't you? You want to play, your teams that you don't necessarily, play. For example,
you want to go to Whitehaven, don't you?
I've never been to Cumbria. Hull FC have never played a Cumbrian side since I've been been old enough to go. There was a couple of times in the early 90s before I started going, but then again I was still in nappies. For me, we need to think about how we approach a Challenge Cup. I think everyone needs to enter top flight clubs as it used to be in the 4th round, and you can get a League One club or a Championship club. I know Featherstone, it did actually derail our season a little bit last year. We got serious injuries for Carlos, for Tullitel, and Josh Bowden. We're talking about a game that
can happen in any game
last year. Yeah, it can. Yeah, obviously when Bowden hasn't returned now, we're talking nearly a year. Out injured, but for me, the romance of the Challenge Cup is all about that. You're a little club, or so to speak, inverted commas, little club. You want to play a Wigan, you want to play a Warrington, a Leeds, a Hull, a Rovers, a Castleford. And I just think we need to embrace that.
Well, you have it, don't you? And Workington were lucky enough, or unlucky enough, depending on which way you look at it, to face Leeds in the last round of the Challenge Cup. Now, Leeds really got involved with it and sent first team players down to Workington to work with the young kids around Workington and go from there. Workington probably had the biggest crowd of the season, with them. They attracted it, and it was done the right way. It's the magic of the Challenge Cup, isn't it? I couldn't agree with you more. There shouldn't be seeding within this Challenge Cup. It's been done for the BBC, I think, to ensure that they get quality games once the TV comes in, and they're going to have Super League games effectively, and they're going to be able to market it properly. But you lose the magic of it. It's not that long ago that you had Toulouse when they were still in the French League, making the semi-finals and having a real good go back when Justin Morgan was their coach. And it is the magic of the Challenge Cup. Anybody could get anybody. Amateur clubs would draw a professional team. At that stage, the amateur clubs, and that would be massive for them. That would keep their clubs afloat.
You'll reverse the fixture. Imagine Hull versus Siddle.
Yeah. Or West Hull.
West Hull. I'm just using any example. You get 4,000 people there. They're taking out some of that receipts. That pitch probably there next 3 years. That keeps them solvent for God knows how long.
Father Heath have got through. They could have.
Imagine how much money they've made.
But they could have made that much more if they'd have got St Helens, if they'd have got a Warrington, if they'd have got a Hull,
a championship club.
Yeah, exactly. Even a championship club, as you said. A decent championship. You get Bradford, you get a Featherstone, you get a Toronto. Somebody like that. It's a day out. It's something that their players will never forget, and that is the magic of it. You can use the analogy with the FA Cup in football.
Yeah, I can show.
And it's the same there. Players used to. I've played in the Challenge Cup at amateur level at a very early stage, and I think we only ever made like the first round or that's it. But then you can turn around and say, I played in the Challenge Cup. I've done it. It's an achievement. It's something that I remember doing. It's like we played a team, we got dotted by about 70 points, I think, but I can say I played in the Challenge Cup, and it is that magic, and we've lost a bit of it. I think the Magic Weekend has
derailed the final attendance.
Yeah, because
Definitely.
that's replaced the Challenge Cup final as the day out. Do you know the
Well, it's
rugby league
cheaper,
in
isn't
the
it?
calendar?
You go to Newcastle, you get your beer for £3.
Liverpool as it is.
Oh
now,
yeah,
really.
your beers are £3. You're not paying £6. You're not paying over £20 for a round with
But
three mates.
it used to be every pub would have a trip to Wembley, wouldn't they, for the Challenge
community
Cup
club.
final? Now, community clubs, things like that, they run a trip. It's to Magic.
Yeah.
That's what it tends to be, and so the Challenge Cup has lost its magic, and Super League don't really care. They don't care because it's not their competition. But the RFL should care, and the first thing they could do is do away with the seeding, and it's immediate. I think unilaterally, apart from perhaps the TV companies, and I know we're beholden to the TV companies a little bit because we don't generate enough income in our game, and so the TV money is what keeps a lot of these clubs afloat. So you've got to be careful about biting the hand that feeds you. But we should be strong enough to turn around and say that. But trust us with this, and you will get a better product. You will get better stories for your TV games. You will get people tuning in. You'll get something that you can market and get behind. And even if you're not going to feature those games, it gives you a talking point. It gives you something to do, and it gives you these good news stories, and it's something that resonates with people, and you can go through.
Absolutely.
So I think we agree, don't we?
I know it's good, this, isn't it? Agree, knowledge. It's a no-brainer for me. Like you say, just to round it off, you want fairy tales in the Challenge Cup. You'll use the analogy in football with the FA Cup. For me, the 2018-2019 season has been a great example to throw that in there because there was some great scouts in the FA Cup this year. I just want to see that replicated in the Challenge Cup. I want to go to Whitehaven, I want my ground six.
Right, my rant. The play the ball. Interpretation of rules. Referees. Where do we start? Now, there's a really... I can go back to Lee Radford again, and he's been vocal in the last couple of days since the Catalans game. And he's turned around and said that they need a coaches meeting urgently. This rule needs tidying up, and he's absolutely bang on. What's interesting for me is that he's spoken to Steve Ganson, and Steve Ganson agrees with him, and he's getting the same message from all the clubs that they need to tighten this up, they need to do away with it, they need to sort it out. But nothing is going to happen until they have a coaches meeting, which is penciled in for early May. Now, in the modern day, why on earth do we have to wait until May to get this coaches meeting? What's wrong with Skype? What's wrong with having a conference call? Just having it, if everybody agrees and everybody knows all about it, you can brief everybody in that way. You can get them all together on a Monday night. Every coach, it's doing all their heads in. They're all getting frustrated with it. I think the only team that seemed to enjoy it and like playing to it are Catalans, who seem to be... I'm not saying as well that Hull FC or any other clubs are blameless and it's just a Catalans thing. We had a situation with Connor Wynn on Saturday where he
and
it was described on Sky as that they said, he's old manned him. Well, he hasn't. He's cheated.
Yeah,
he's cheated. I was somebody as a dummy half who if I could cheat and get away with something, I would do. And players are like that. And because you're there to get...
preaching it,
no, exactly. But if you couldn't get it, it's down to the rugby league, is what I'm saying, and it's down. It's not the players. If there's a rule to be manipulated and to be exploited, players will do that. One, it's their livelihood, and two, they're there to win. The winners. Yeah. If you play in that game, you want to win, so you'll do whatever you can to win. If you can go as far as saying holding somebody down is winning, but the only way we do away with it is if we go to the NRL interpretation, where they just call play on. They just call play on. You step over a player and you play it into him. And they just go play on. You soon pick it up and get rid of it. The one thing that it does take away, right, is, or does create a possibility of with the play the ball and how this is you will get a club that will try and exploit it and leave players lying in the play the ball. Okay? That's where referees will need to be switched on and will need to display some common sense, because if it's happening repeatedly, play after play after play, sooner or later they're going to have to blow up and do it. And teams will recognise that, and they'll realise that they're doing it on purpose, and that's there. It's not cheating. If somebody gets up there and they play the ball and they boot it backwards as hard as they can to go into somebody, it's play on, or give a knock on. Or if he's moved off the mark to play the ball, that's completely different. You penalise him
as well.
for moving.
There was a couple of incidents, Catalans literally flapping and there's no contact. And I know some not just saying it's a Catalans thing, but they're the most recent example.
Well, the trap players in, trap arms in as well, and things like that, and they're trying. And the referees know what's going on because often they don't give the penalties for those trapped in ones. The one where they're doing it is because it is a directive from Steve Ganson at the top to say if the man's late trapped at the play of the ball and the ball hits him or he falls over him, you have to give a penalty. So they've given that. That is the clear directive at the moment. So that's what that directive will change, and it'll be the same as the obstruction interpretation as well. Once they get a coaches meeting there, they'll look at that and a bit more common sense will come into it. And I feel a little bit better knowing that it's on the agenda. But my frustration is, why do we have to wait while May? Why can't they do it now? As I said, it's so easy to sit there. Everybody's got a laptop. Everybody's got a computer. Everybody's got a mobile phone. You know,
so phones are 19.
Yeah, you can get people together. You can do it. You can get someone. I'm sure they've got a spider phone somewhere in the RFL where everybody can dial in with dialing details and they can.
To be fair, Johnny, they're probably still using pager phones.
Well, I tell you what, right? Give me a call then, the RFL. I'll come and sort you out spider phone. We'll get you one in. We'll get you a conference call sorted up. All right.
Yeah.
But it's just the lack of common sense, and that's what we need. We need a common sense approach to it, and. I know we go on a little bit about the NRL and how they've got things right. With this, they 100% have it right. I saw half a dozen instances where somebody was trapped behind the play of the ball this week in the round of games, and at no point was a penalty given. They just said, play on.
Pick the ball up
and play it. And what it does possibly take away is it does take away the opportunity to run from dummy half.
Yep.
But you can play on and you can go from there. And as I said, if they're doing it repeatedly and it becomes an issue, referee then has to show some common sense and recognise what's going on. And if the fans in the stands can recognise it, then I'm sure somebody who's trained and is a full-time professional is there sitting there watching videos of teams and they'd soon cotton on to them. It'd soon stop. It's just we want some common sense.
Absolutely.
And a common sense approach to the play of the ball and the interpretation of the play of the ball. What I don't agree with is people saying, well, it's down to the coaches, they're coaching. Their job is to make the best of any rule, and OFC as a club, while that rule is there and the interpretation of the rule is there, I would be disappointed in our club if we were the only ones that weren't doing it. And I know you probably feel slightly differently.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Obviously, I was at the ground, on Saturday while you were watching on TV. That's a low blow.
In England,
that is a low blow. And there's a few of us. Give a little shout out. Andy XLB Foods, if you live in Hull or East Yorkshire. XLB Foods on the internet, the old interweb, and make sure you get your meat from there. You won't be disappointed. The Hull FC lads get all their meat from there, so if you want to look like Scott Taylor or have the physique of Jamie Shaw, you know where to go. But the point I'm making here is we're all screaming for Hull FC to do the same thing. Catalans did it about 4 or 5 times in the opening 20 minutes. And there was an incident where Hull played the ball. There was a Catalan's third man laid right behind the ruck. Connor Wynn went to scoop the ball. Obviously to go pick the ball up and scoop. I'm like, Connor, don't step over him. Just stand there. Just stand there, reach it and throw the ball at him and get a penalty. Yeah, it's cheating, but if they're doing it, don't just bow down to it. Be smart. That's the problem with Leslie. Maybe we're too nice sometimes. I know it's obviously a bit hypocritical of me to say this because we're on about cleaning up a bit more and making sure players teams are more honest and whatnot, and we're obviously calling for this to go. But if you're sitting there playing games and you're getting shafted at the ruck and you're not doing anything about it or doing the same things yourself, then you might as well get on with it and give it a go. I want to clue we're recording this on Monday night. Just had our eye on the Challenge Cup draw. Nice. I'm happy with Hull's draw there. Hull v Cass.
That's at home draw. That's all you want in the Challenge Cup.
What is it with league rhinos and pulling out lower league teams though?
Bradford Bulls.
Yeah, I know it's also as well. That'd be interesting.
Hull KR going to Salford. Unlucky.
Yeah.
Dewsbury, Halifax.
Yeah, that's a nice
all championship.
So there will be a championship.
Warrington, Wigan.
Yeah, so there will be a championship team in the quarter final then. That's so leagues will get in the quarters then, isn't it? And
Huddersfield St Albans. And
Warrington,
Paul Doncaster have got to go to France.
That's taking a mick, that, isn't it? That is actually taking a mick.
Wakey witness. Interesting.
Yeah, some interesting ties there. But I think, the points are very valid and think we'll have to pick two subjects next week where we disagree and start arguing. Talk about Great Britain again. We don't agree with that.
I do think with this play the ball interpretation and the rules though and everything, I struggle to find anybody in the game, any fan that does disagree with me. The only slight disagreement that some people have is they turn around and say whose responsibility it is to clean it up, and they say, "Oh well, players that." And I think you're being very naive if you think the players are.
It's the referee.
Well, it's the RFL. The directive has to come from the RFL. It has to come from Steve
referees?
Ganson. Yeah, it's Steve Ganson.
Exactly, and
but
he's not accountable for anything right now.
No
one fires questions at him.
I'll disagree with you here slightly. He's available to the coaches. Just because we don't publicly see it doesn't mean that he's not available to them. By all accounts, they've all got his phone number. He answers his phone, so he'll speak to them. He'll go there. But there is their structure, and this is what I'm saying is flawed at the moment. Is they're saying that at the start of the year, they agreed certain interpretations for rules, as in the obstruction rule, as in the play of the ball, how it would be policed, and the clubs all bought into it and they did it. What they're saying is they're not going to change that interpretation until they have the next coaches meeting with the referees and they can get a unilateral decision from all the coaches that that's what they want to do and that's the way they want to go with it. For me, I think that's... If everybody's saying the same thing right now, why do we have to wait? That's my frustration.
Yeah, that's a good point. That I suppose we'll have to wait until they all get the page of funds together and meet and go from there. Move on to the NRL then, round 5 over in Australia. Actually had the luxury of watching 3 of the games in Espanyol in Spain. You know, I was in my all-inclusive hotel with my unlimited vodka Fanta Lemons. He's going to punch me in a minute. That's ironic, actually, because I'll take the mickey anymore and he'll conveniently forget to book me for the June trip.
Yeah, this is it.
So I've got to be nice to him, really, yeah.
We'll see. I said earlier he could get in the room with me and my boys.
So I'll just tell Reece that I've got a beach rugby ball in there. I'll say, oh yeah, Dan can come now. I want that ball. But the first game, Broncos v West. Broncos must be the most inconsistent team in the NRL. 1 week they're great, the next
they are the Catalans, aren't they?
Yeah,
the Catalans of the NRL. It's a strange one. But then you've got inconsistent halfbacks and you've got a fullback who's shot really physically.
Darius Boyd,
yeah. And Darius Boyd is not the player he once was. Ironic that, or interesting, shall we say, that it's the same week that Greg Inglis retires.
Yeah.
I mean, Darius Boyd played outside of Greg Inglis for a lot of years, and Greg Inglis has probably done it the right way. He knows that his body's shot. He knows that he can't get through another year. So rather than tarnish his legacy, he's gone, this is it for me, see you later. I think Darius Boyd is probably at a similar stage of his career.
Yeah, definitely.
Where he's, by hanging around, he's tarnishing his reputation. London Broncos. Brisbane Broncos have a player in Asako, the winger. Jermaine Asako.
Oh, Jamal Asako.
Whatever.
Oh,
Asako.
Yeah. Asako.
Who's
Kicking winger.
Who's going to be an absolute gun fullback for them, and he will be their next fullback. And the fact that they're playing him out on the wing now is probably hindering them. I think if you put Asako into fullback for Brisbane, they would immediately improve. Jack Baird could also, there's an argument that Jack Baird could be utilised in the halves for them, and that could add something there. Milford has been very up and down for them. Missing Roberts as well now. There's an interesting one, isn't there? James Roberts. Did you see the images of James Roberts being dragged out of There's a kid who comes from a real tough background, done it tough in his life, has a history with recreational drugs, tested positive a couple of times, never had a ban. Make that what you will. Issues with drink, been to rehab a couple of times, and every now and then falls off the rails is what they're saying. But they're just gonna, because he's such a good player, he's still gonna be allowed to play Origin. Still gonna come back.
Just throwing him the carpet because he's got a bit of pace.
That's how it is. But you look at the Broncos pack with likes of Offa Ngawi, Pangai Jr. I mean, as much as Matt Lodge is a grub, he's almost a carbon copy of Scott Taylor.
Yeah.
Do you know how he plays?
How he plays
a very similar player. Alex Glenn.
The difference is Scott does beat up women.
The young David Fafita.
It's weird that, isn't it?
And Matt Gillette. They've got a brilliant pair. And even McCulloch as a 9. He's a decent 9. Is McCulloch. So
they should be winning a lot more games than they do.
They're underperforming. Wests are an intriguing one, aren't they?
Gritty.
Yeah,
really gritty.
Reynolds has come in and instead of Marshall while Marshall's out.
I like Luke Brooks, so actually he's a good player.
Luke Brooks,
not Origin standard. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but he's a good NRL player.
Now, do you know what? Right at the moment on form, who's the better 7, Brooks or Cleary?
Cleary.
He's not on form. Luke Brooks.
Penrith bias right here.
You watched that game. Luke Brooks was very, very good.
It was very good.
And he started to challenge the line and play. And that was always his criticism, that he doesn't... Very similar criticism to what people level at Mark Sneyd, is that he doesn't trouble the line. But Luke Brooks...
So what he does do is outstanding.
Yeah.
What you said before we recorded Mick Powers and Shots, we had a little bit of talk about Origin, being the rugby league nerds that we are. And if you're doing it, on form right now, Luke Keary has to play at 5'8". But you said to probably go with the tried and trusted Maloney and Cleary. Obviously, they play together every week at Panthers.
Oh, I actually think Fittler will go Cleary and Keary. When it comes down to Origin, still 7 weeks away. I think by the time we get to there, Penrith's form is that.
Cleary was good at the Gold Coast. I know I'll come on to that in a minute, but Cleary was. He played really well. And obviously, he's adjusting to a new edge. He's gone from the right edge. He's playing on the left.
What I'm saying is, if he was picking it purely on form, Luke Brooks would probably be your 7. But you don't just pick it on form, do you? You don't pick any rectangle. There's got to be a level of loyalty. There's got to be a level of what you've done for me previously and how you are as a player.
And again, Maloney's played New South Wales Origin a lot of times, and I don't see how you can overlook Luke Keary right now. But yeah, West's impressive. Obviously threw the ball about for the last try. Bit of an unorthodox player, wasn't it?
Well, they rely a lot on the back five, don't they? They were with the wingers and the centres, and like some Masters found his kicking boots this week as well, which was
awful against Penrith, funny.
But the gritty is the right. I like Alex Twal, the front boy. Again, only a young prop. I think he will go on to play Origin. Alex Twal, I think he will really develop and kick in. But the Cheekham and Michael Cheekham, there's a player much maligned by the West Tigers fans. You go on any of their message boards and stuff like that, and they're like, "What does he bring? What does he do?" And it's like,
it's amazing that they can find something other than Ivan Cleary to talk about.
he just won him a game. He came out with a bit of a play out of nothing. Right, a couple of minutes to go, he got caught on the last tackle. They half shifted it. They just threw it.
It's for a prop.
Well, he's a second row. He was playing in the centre at the time as well. He'd come on for Jennings, who'd gone off injured with an HIA, I think.
Yeah.
And Cheekham, maybe not the best player in the NRL. Even if he came over to Super League, he wouldn't be. I'd liken him to sort of a Frank Winterstein, that sort of second row. He's a similar player who played a bit over here. And came up with probably the best play of his career so far, Cheekham, and won the game for him. But they don't go away. West, very good defensively.
Really good defensively.
Well coached. Maguire.
Yeah, Michael Maguire.
That's it.
He makes you well drilled, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Moves on to Titans v Panthers. My Panthers.
You talk about this.
Not clicking at all at the minute. Something is... Well, it's sort of a little bit of a similar start to 2017. They started that season horrifically. Got better as it went on. Luckily made the 8, but didn't really do much in the 8. They won the first game, but then they ended up losing to Brisbane. Last year, they started like a house on fire, then fell away. Obviously made the 8, but didn't really go into the last stages of the playoffs. So it's a weird one, because when Penrith clicked, they're amazing. They're absolutely, some of the rugby league they play is absolutely ridiculous, but when it's bad, it's bad. And it's just, as I say, things aren't clicking right now. They've swapped the arse around. Maloney's gone from left to right, Cleary right to left. Right now it's not working. They've got a big problem with fullback, whether they play Dallin, Watini-Zelezniak, or they play Dylan Edwards. Dylan Edwards had an absolute nightmare against Melbourne.
Fans are on his back, aren't they?
Fans are on his back. I've noticed that actually on the message board, especially on Facebook. It's like, round 5 lads, calm down. But, in the sheds at the West Tigers game, you had Gus Gold in the changing room, and I was told, when Ivan Cleary was announced as head coach at Panthers, that Gold was football manager and nothing else, yet he's in the sheds at half time. So that's, you make of that what you will, don't you? But they're just not firing at the minute. It's good to see Billy Kakao obviously come back and score a try, though, because he's an absolutely insane player for Penrith. One of the best back rows in the competition. Brilliant player.
Nearly ended up at FC, didn't he?
Yeah, crazily. If we took a gamble on it, that would have been amazing, wouldn't it? But yeah, they've got some, got so many good players in that team. Another area that started to wind me up. Dean Vary and Waka Blake keep swapping as well. It's like, just pick an edge and stick to it,
Well, I think that's half the battle is they don't know. They haven't got the combinations.
No, they
haven't.
They don't know
what
They swapped Cleary around
are.
onto that, Fijian edge, if you like, with Blake and Kakao. It wasn't quite clicking, so they swapped them over again. And it's not. It's just. It
wasn't broke last year, so I don't understand why they changed it.
Well, there's a lot of players obviously been handed, big contracts there. Regan Campbell-Gillard, Origin player last year, hasn't lived up to that form this year. Always been. James Fish-Harris has, outshone him. James Taumau, he came to Penrith and he he's a former Origin player, obviously Aussie international.
James Tammer
he's been outstanding this year.
He was a player who came. He was touted. Well, New Zealand and Australia were at war over him, weren't they? Because they wanted him. Yeah. Both teams wanted him to play in their team, and he picked Australia because he wanted to play Origin, and he was that good for a couple of years.
Cowboys, he was outstanding.
Yeah, then went off the boil, and now he seems to have picked back up, and he's leading that pack really in a struggling pack. On paper, you look at Penrith's team, and I think this might be where Gus Gould's getting involved. And they've got probably the third best squad in the NRL.
They've got a bloody good roster, but the problem is that the problems are at 1 and 9. You think of NRL fullbacks, and you go right across the board. Everyone's got, barring a very select few. You're talking 2 or 3 clubs here. Everyone's got a top class fullback.
Do you think their halves are too samey? Do you think Maloney and Cleary are just
Cleary,
the same player? Really?
Cleary needs to be the dominant half. Whether or not Maloney... you're going to see the best of Cleary when Maloney buggers off next year.
Yeah, he's going to Catalans, isn't he, next year?
You'll get Jerome Lau in. And when you see him, he'll be the 5'8", Cleary will be the dominant half, and then we'll see Penrith go.
What's wrong with Lau playing fullback this year?
That's a good shout. The ironic thing is, they just let a Fijian winger go to Parramatta. He's blowing up trees.
But the fans, the fans do want Watini Zalesniak at fullback, don't they? That's what they're saying. He played there for New Zealand. Did a good job there for New Zealand. Probably their best player. Captained New Zealand, didn't he? So.
Yeah, he did in the series last year. Yeah, there's just like I said, there's just too many holes. Titans though have been plucky in the game so far. Obviously, that was the first win.
Titans are the Salford of the NRL for me.
Yeah, not fans of it. Bless them. A massive stadium that's empty.
Amos Roberts. Not Amos Roberts, sorry. Tyrone Roberts. Amos Roberts, he played for Wigan and Penrith as well.
I'm the one who's been up since 6 there. I'm not ill. Come on, Johnny.
Getting old now, 37 soon. Yeah, so Tyrone Roberts is going...
Been a long day coming back from Catalans, No, I know what you mean. Tyrone Roberts, he had a poor year in the Super League last year, and he come back at say, got a try. Michael Gordon, 250 NRL games, has obviously been a steady player over there. It's interesting to see what you said. He's only played 250 games. We do that all the time over here.
Look at Jamie Jones Buchanan. He's played hundreds and thousands.
Yeah, thousands of games. Stanley Jean, how many did he play?
About 7 million.
He played till he got 65, didn't he?
Right. NRL is obviously a difficult competition and a more intense competition, and they play less games.
Yeah.
They do play less games. But I think they get lauded a bit too much for these appearances, and not enough prestige is attached to Super League games. Do you know the amount of games? But a game is no less harder because it's played more frequent. If anything, it's more difficult. Yes, the standard of our competition has not been as high as theirs, and yes, it's a bit more diluted. I'm not trying to knock Michael Gordon's achievement of playing 250 professional games. That's brilliant. What I'm trying to say is these equally, and the point I'm making quite badly is that there's just as much prestige, or there should be just as much prestige attached to playing games in Super League.
That's where you're coming from. I think it's a valid point. Minicello will probably get very close to 150 games for FC in the 15, 16, 17, 18, in the 5 seasons he's been here. That's a great achievement for him.
But you're playing the NRL, right? And they have the ceremony, don't they, before the grand final every year, where players going off to play Super League, they laud them as retiring.
Yeah, it's
bad. Do you know they've got the march around the pitch with the flag and say, it's like the career's ending. Well, they've signed 4-year deals.
There's a little bit of arrogance there, definitely. Yeah, I'll agree with that. But well done to the Titans on the first win. Panthers, book your ideas up. Cowboys v Storm was a snooze fest.
It was an awful game. It was worse than any game in Super League.
Yeah.
This week, it really was. The standard was awful. And when you look at Melbourne Storm with the players they've got, and it's like, I tell you what, I sort of had a nice smile to myself as well. You talk about people and who shouldn't be playing the game and allowed to play the game. You've got a convicted drug trafficker in Sandor L came back and he was garbage for Melbourne. Garbage. And it's just...
Nice karma, that, wasn't it? Nice little bit of karma. Obviously, Cam Smith getting his points record.
And that is an achievement. Yeah,
I hate him, though. He's refereed more games than he's played.
But he's scored more points than anybody else in NRL history. Yeah, that is an achievement.
It's an achievement,
it really is.
He's also refereed the most games in NRL history as well. Yeah. Cowboys, though, like you say, they've got some holes in that team, haven't they? They've got a massive They're going from winning the comp in 2015 to,
They won't make the playoffs.
no,
They'll be
definitely they'll be bottom three, bottom two. Maybe even bottom two.
I actually think it's between them and Bulldogs for the wooden spoon.
Yeah, I'd struggle to disagree with that. South's Warriors led the game for the most part. Souths came back.
Weird team. Warriors, though, I still think it was a mistake letting Sean Johnson go.
Yeah.
The fact that Blake Green pulled out and the fact that they're reliant on somebody like Blake Green.
Oh, what about the young kid Savita?
We should have lauded Blake Green when he left Wigan and as retiring and marched him round after the grand final with a flag, saying, "Oh, he's done. It's finished now. He's off to retire in the."
I thought he did more at Wigan than he's done since he's gone back to the NRL.
Yeah, but he's their main man at the Warriors.
Yeah,
now. I mean, instantly Isaac Luke came back and made a difference for them.
Yeah.
But then Jazz Tavanga off the bench as a 9. Probably had more impact than Isaac Luke in that game. Souths won the game.
Cook is immense, and he's such a good player. What did he do, like sprinting or something before I went to professional rugby league player?
There was
some form of flex.
60 metres sprint or something like that, wasn't it? But he's
Sam?
Well, Damien Cook, you look at this, right? He was a half, wasn't he, at Bulldogs and couldn't get a game. He played off the bench now and then for them. Went to Souths, turned him into a 9, and
he's explosive.
Right now, I'm a huge admirer of the British 9s. In particular, I think Darryl Clark is the best British 9. If you ask me, rounded. And lots of people have their own opinions and they'll say Roby and Hodgson. For me, Darryl Clark is there.
Hodgson,
it's the one position in the UK where I think we've got better players than Australia. However,
depth-wise, definitely.
Yeah, Damien Cook is as good as it gets now. At the moment, the form he's in, he's just ripping teams apart, and he is dynamite out of dummy half. Absolute dynamite.
Cody Walker at 6 as well. Yeah. Advocate for the reserve format that we bang on about every week.
Cody Walker made his debut at 26. Right, didn't play first grade at all until he was 26. Now he is arguably one of South's most important players.
Who's a better five-8 from the comp right now? Obviously, you say Luke Keary.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, I'd say you're struggling to find a better one than Cody Walker.
No, I'm going current form. Cody Walker, and he was captain of the Indigenous side.
Yeah.
You know, he's got leadership qualities. South's left edge is lauded across the NRL as being tremendous and a huge part. Anybody who scores 4 tries in a game in the NRL is a good player.
Yeah, definitely.
And yes, he just reads the game really well, really well. He's like a less erratic version of Albert Kelly. Maybe not quite as strong, but that's how he is, and he plays really well. Plays above his weight, plays nice and solid, leads his team, a good, solid professional, goes well.
Knights, Manly, a little bit of a purple patch, Manly. My mate Kev Deaton will be happy.
Knights are an interesting team, aren't they? You never know what you're going to get with them either. But they've got a lot of new players in this year, and I think they're still gelling. There'll be a point where they hit some form and they'll dust some teams. Kalen Ponga, they've shifted him back to 1. I think that's a positive move. Mitchell Pearce is actually playing well at 7. He's going all right. I'd argue Mitchell Pearce is in better form than Nathan Cleary as well.
Yeah, of yourself.
But
what do you reckon Cherry Evans at Manly?
Cherry Evans is leading them.
Got that dickhead bad boy reputation, but he's playing well at the minute.
We talked about it a couple of weeks ago on Meat Pies and Shots, and I said maybe it's just right place, right time. The kid's matured, ready to lead, and he's going all right.
I'll still your thunder then, unless you want to do like your little stat.
We're not at that game yet. True, yeah,
we're not at that game yet.
This guy's going to try and nick my stat.
I just want to nick your stats.
We'll jump to it then.
We're going harder. Yeah, let's go in harder.
Sharks and Roosters. Sharks Port. Roosters very good.
Roosters. For me right now, I know you said Melbourne, but for me right now, they're my tip to win. You know, they're going to go, first team, 20 years to go back-to-back premierships. They look red hot. They've improved on last year.
I'd like the Roosters to beat Melbourne. I think Melbourne have got a bit too much know-how when it gets gritty.
Oh, you said that last year, but Roosters did him in the final.
Yeah, and then that was it. They were off, weren't they? You know, in the final, Melbourne.
They were awesome.
And Roosters played really well. They've got some. I mean, any team that can leave Angus Crichton on the bench and bring him off they've got some depth there.
I'd argue now, they've got the best fullback in the game, James Tedesco.
By a million miles.
Best centre in the game, Latrell Mitchell. Don't think there's a better centre out there right now.
I think if James Roberts got his head sorted,
Latrell Mitchell, best centre in the game. 5'8", we've got the best 5'8" for the game in Luke Keary. I think them 3 players are the best players in their respective positions. Then you can add Angus Crichton in there, strengthen their side this
Boyd
year.
Cordner.
Boyd Cordner on the other edge. You've got
Maria
obviously
Hargreaves,
Victor Radley doing a great job at 9 at the minute. Obviously, although one thing I did notice, I watched that game in the airport this morning when I was in Catalans.
He looked a better 9 than a 13. I thought he looked really good. I quite liked him.
Some of his passes, you can see the fatigue and the minutes we're getting from him.
Yeah.
There's a few which did, kneecap and below.
Early doors, though.
Yeah.
And he played there last week, and I'm probably more basing it off his performance. I thought last week he was outstanding.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But they've got so much talent, haven't they? You think CSO, Itaki Ario, the ridiculous roster. Cooper Cronk at 7, obviously, he's been there, done that, knows the game inside
Joseph
out.
Manu, you've got
Well, he's
Daniel
a great
Tupou,
player. Unless he comes against Jake Connor, of course.
And then you've got maybe Ryan Holt coming to that side as well.
Yeah. What about Brett Morris as well?
Yeah, it's a battle.
I'll tell you what, though.
They've got some serious depth, haven't they?
I can't pronounce the name of the right winger. He played in the World Cup Challenge.
I think he's garbage.
But the finish he made, Joseph Manu did the flick. He sort of dummied a flick pass. Came in and flicked out.
I can't pronounce his right. There's Etovano, whatever.
Yeah, the finish was awesome. Absolutely ridiculous finish.
He's another one, holes in his game defensively, and especially when you'll have the likes of Tupou, Morris and Hall up against him, he won't get a game when they're all fit.
Cronulla were disappointing for me. I know they started playing when the game was gone, 30-0.
What's happened to Josh Dugan?
He's growing a mullet and thinks he's...
it's ridiculous. He's just not a player. There was a couple of years ago I thought he was outstanding.
Well, he came over in the Four Nations Aussie Tour and back in the World Cup in 2013 as well. And
he had natural strength and just ripped people apart. And he's just regressed for me.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that did impress me for Cronulla, Siona Carter on the wing, he was good.
Cronulla, here's a question for you. Who's better, Andrew Fafita or David Fafita?
What, the one at Brisbane?
No, the one at Wakefield at the moment. Andrew, and I know it's a different competition.
Come on.
But Andrew Fafita is really sloppy at the minute.
He's really sloppy, yeah, but David Fafita, there's a reason he's in Super League.
Yeah. Maybe if you put David Fafita in the NRL now, it'd be going a bit different.
It would be interesting. Wakefield fans would say no.
I know, Michael Carter, I hope he's not watching this bit. He won't be retweeting us then, will he?
No, I've seen them two Muppets and blocking them.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one. They came back towards the back end, didn't they, Sharks?
Yeah.
Made it a bit more respectable, but Roosters, game was over after about 50 minutes.
Straight after half time, they made it 24-0.
Yeah, that was it.
30-0 actually. It was 3 tries in the
and they put the queue on the rack, didn't they?
Yeah, eased it out, didn't they? There's so much quality in that team right now. It's really hard to look past them.
Here we go then. Dragons, Bulldogs. I'm going to start with this then. Tim Laffey. You've got to tip your cap. Tim Laffey has now scored against every single team in the NRL. Every single club at some point during his career he's scored.
I actually thought he was going to gloat about your Bulldogs tip there, -78, one out of 5.
I've said right from the start Bulldogs will be wooden spooners, and I do think so. They've got a lot of youth, and Kieran Foran, and I know he's injured now anyway, but they're just a bit sloppy, aren't they?
What about Dragons then playing Matt Duffy at fullback?
Well, Duffy's a faster version of Jamie Shaw.
Yeah.
And
that's saying something.
And that is really saying something. If Matt Duffy played in Super League, he would be electric.
Yeah.
And they've been loath to play him there. Now, I know they've been trying to shoe on Corey Norman and Gareth Widdopin and losing Widdop, who incidentally is now going to come back by the end of the year. It could actually help them in some ways.
They'll win the playoffs, Dragons. They'll definitely be top 8.
They're an outside bet for the grand final of the Dragons. Do you know, on any given day, they could send. Well, they've got champion players. James Graham, Paul Vaughan.
I actually like Tarek Sims as well. Yeah, he's outstanding.
Well, he's a threat, isn't he? Tarek Sims.
Massive.
He's a bit of a grub, but he's a threat. And then you never. Jack DeBellin comes back, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know that he'll add something there? Trent Merrin might rock up at the Dragons sooner or later.
So it's the Dragons version, not the Panthers version. Raiders, Eels, then the English boys doing well, 19-0 win. They won 4 out of 5, haven't they?
Turning to Wigan, aren't they? Or Wigan of old, the Sean Wayne Wigan.
Canberra Warriors. Wigan Raiders.
They're going well. I tell you who I was impressed with, and it's the unheralded one of the English
Ryan
Sutton, yeah. I thought Ryan Sutton had a really good game against the Eels, and he's just playing simple and direct, but he's playing big minutes. He's carting the ball forward. He's playing strong, and I always that was the signing where I looked at Cameron and thought, yeah, he's going to play reserve grade. He's not going to play much.
Well, I thought it'd
And
be one of Joe Bedge. Your Dan Sanderson back in the year with the tail between the legs, but
it doesn't look like it.
no, he's doing well for
And what's interesting now is there's talk of not only George Williams going there, but also Oliver Gildart. If you listen to some of that social media banter,
Gildart's ready for the NRL.
He's got defensively probably not, but
Well, look at what happened with Sargentson.
I mean, he'd come into that team there. You look at that. Would he play? Would he play on the wing? No, because you've got Jared Croker and you've got BJ Leiloa, and then you've got Rapana on one wing, Cottridge on the other. So
where's he getting?
Yeah, and I think there's that argument is. Gildart probably isn't good enough to play in that team. Probably isn't. Williams will add something to them.
Oh, yeah, massively. Better than it this season.
Well, and what is interesting, again, Jack Whiten is currently playing on that left edge.
Yeah.
And Williams must surely go play left edge when he gets
why did Jack Whiten play fullback? I couldn't get my head around that one, to be honest.
Nickel Coxted is having a brilliant year for them. And that is a find. And this shows the depth of the NRL. He couldn't get a gig at the Warriors as a winger or a fullback. Now, granted, they've got some serious depth there. And, you go back to the Warriors game a little bit. One thing I will say, early doors, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck was unbelievable. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is as good a player. And I know we said Tedesco, best fullback in the world. I think Tuivasa-Sheck's up there with him.
Oh, yeah.
It's more of what you like. Do you like your footwork and your plays? Or do you like your direct runner around the ruck, buzzing around the ruck? It's horses for courses, isn't it?
Yeah.
So either way, both of them are very good players. But no, you go back to the Raiders. They're a solid team. They're clearly going to be a playoff team, and they're going to shock teams. I just think what you saw was when they came up against Melbourne, I think you saw probably the level when they're just a little bit lower than the likes of the Roosters and Melbourne and possibly even St George.
Yeah. Rabbitohs too.
But they're probably a 5th or 6th place team at the moment.
It's probably a fair shot, that.
I'd say they're probably overachieving a little bit. But they're riding the waves. They're a much better team than they were last year, and Bateman is a huge signing for them.
Oh, yeah. First city I was just raving about John Bateman because we know how good he is over here.
Oh, we've said for
Ripped Super League apart, didn't he, for about the last 2 or 3 seasons. He's just
this is an interesting conversation because we've often said if you could have picked a player out of another team over the last couple of years to come into your side,
we all said Bateman.
We all said Bateman, yeah. Who would it be this year? If you could pick a player.
Soapboy.
Yeah, see, I've got a player straight away, and I've already mentioned him.
Darryl Clark.
Yeah, and I would. I think if I could pick any player from any team in Super League.
I thought it was supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
That was easy. Yeah, definitely Darryl Clark. 100%.
Our mate Ian Fresh reckons Luke Thompson, which is a decent shout as well.
Yeah.
You go from it because I'd said 2 players of other teams that I probably admire the most in the league at the moment: Ratchford and Clark. Ratchford's very underrated, I think, for me. I think superb player.
Yeah,
but in the All FC's team, and if you're talking this sort of like fantasy a little bit, we wouldn't need. You're looking horses for courses again. We've already got a fullback. You put Darryl Clark in our team. He as good as Danny Houghton has been, as good as Seven.
Yeah.
Darryl Clark adds to us a mix as
massively,
better, as Luke Thompson would. Would Stephen Ratchford probably make us a little bit better, but we're pretty well stocked in Jamie Shaw, Jake Connor, Albert Kelly. Mark Stevens. Interesting one for another week maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe go through the full. Hopefully get some of the fans to throw in their suggestions.
Pinch their players. Right. Well, thanks for this week, and we'll see you next week.
It's there.